Bianca had recently applied to a lot of jobs, as she got laid off from her previous one just because they had found someone better to do the job. She went to a lot of job interviews and needed to get a job quick, as she didn't even have much savings in the bank. Every time she would come back from a job interview, she would keep checking her phone if she got an email or call, but she was disappointed every single time. She was rehearsing for an interview, which she had in the morning, as she wanted to make the best impression out of it. After she got home from the interview, she did the same, but didn't get anything. She had started to lose hope now, as it was the last company on her list. She was researching the whole night if she would find some other company, but unfortunately, she didn't. Now, she was just thinking about what would happen when she'll run out of money and will have absolutely nothing. She couldn't even sleep that night. In the morning, when she woke up, she kept checking her phone if any of the companies called or sent an email, but nothing. She had her normal breakfast and then started to watch TV. She checked once again, but nothing. Now she thought of going to a friend for help. Later that day, she was walking down the aisle when her phone rang. It was from the company where she had applied for a job a week ago. Bianca was so excited, even though she only got in as a secretary, because she had been looking for jobs for so long, and she wanted to utilize her time during her summer break. She had to start work on Monday, and she arrived exactly on time. The overall environment of the office was dull and grim, which made Bianca uncomfortable. One of her colleagues told her to go see the boss, Bill. Bill was a strict-looking man and had this serious expression that only made Bianca more nervous. "Good morning, sir," said Bianca. He looked up from his computer and nodded. "I heard you did great at your interview. I hope to see you work as passionately too," said Bill. "Yes, sir." Bianca instantly began her work, taking her boss's calls, replying to his emails, etc. It was almost the closing time. Bianca was getting ready to leave after the long and tiresome day, when Bill came to her table and asked her to finish the paper he handed her. "I need it first thing tomorrow morning, and Bianca, don't disappoint me." Saying that Bill left the office, so did all her colleagues. "Mom was right. They do load you with work on your first day," said Bianca, in an exasperated tone. She then got started with the paper. Half an hour had passed, and it was already starting to get dark. It started small. First, she heard the footsteps down the hallway. They seemed like the sounds of someone staggering and dragging their feet while walking. It sounded as if it was a woman, quietly sobbing and coming closer. The sounds were slowly becoming more audible. Bianca was frozen in place, because she knew that everyone had went home, and she was the only one in the building, besides the janitorial staff that was currently cleaning up outside. She slowly got up to check who it was, but the hallway was empty, and the sounds had stopped. Confused, but also eager to go home, Bianca decided to continue with her work. When she turned around, there she stood. A woman, her back hunched, her hair drenched in a sticky red matter. Her eyes were just black holes, and her whole body was cut open from everywhere, and the cuts were oozing out pus and blood. Her arms were so long, and her whole body was inhumanly deformed, that it made Bianca scream. As soon as she did, the strange woman grabbed her hair and banged her head on the wall over and over again, and then on the ground, which made painful, mushy sounds, opening up her head. The woman opened Bianca's stomach with her bare hands and started pulling out all the vital organs, killing Bianca instantly. Next morning, her body was discovered, and it was an instant police case. CCTV footages revealed Bianca hitting her head on the wall and the ground, and then they saw her open up her stomach by digging her nails into it and pulling out the organs herself. although the camera blocked out before she was actually dead. There was no sign of that strange woman in the footage, but you and I both know that Bianca also knew that the woman was there and is still out there looking for more victims.
It was my first week working at a small diner. As a cashier, all I had to do was not mess up punching in the orders and try to smile and be helpful, but I was so nervous with each customer approaching the cash register. By the time the last customer went out, I breathed a sigh of relief. "Hey, how you holding up?" Greg, one of the cooks, asked me as he patted me on the back. "Doing great, as long as no one else shows up," I replied. I looked at the watch. It was almost time for my shift to be over. "Need a snack?" Greg asked me. Greg was about 6 years older than I was, and very male, tall, and imposing. He was good-looking enough, with his floppy brown hair and wide-toothed smile, but I didn't feel comfortable with being too close to my workmates. "No thanks. I don't eat out with co-workers," I started. Greg, however, waved his hands and interrupted. No, I'm not asking you out or anything. Jim just brought us homemade meat pies. They're really good, and he brings enough for everyone." Greg pointed towards the kitchen, where the cook in charge of the next shift, Jim, was washing his hands. "Oh, no thank you," I smiled apologetically. "I think I might vomit if I eat anything now." I headed for the staff room as the boy replacing me for the next shift arrived. I quickly changed out of my uniform and headed for the exit. "Don't forget," Greg called after me, "night shift tomorrow." The following day I clocked in for work. It was 10 in the evening. Already the place was quiet and empty of customers. It wasn't peak season, so maybe this would continue for a couple more weeks. I must have had a pathetic look in my place, because Greg, emerging from the kitchen area, laughed out loud. "Such a long face," he said. "It's so dull here," I whined. Actually, an uneventful shift would be a blessing, since I still wasn't used to being a cashier. But if I was going to be stuck with Greg for 6 hours, I wouldn't want the silence to stretch. "So, how do we kill time?" Greg said. "Got any scary stories to tell?" I asked him. He raised his eyebrows. "You know, to scare us awake." "You should ask Jim next time. He knows some really scary ones. But yeah, sure." Greg pulls up a chair and starts. When I was starting out at this job 2 years ago, I had this co-worker, Sheila. She was the cook, along with Jim, and I was still a cashier at the time. So, in the following months, I noticed Sheila looking sicker and losing weight. I used to tease her that whatever fad diet pills she was on were a little too effective. Anyway, one day she just doesn't show up for work, and we don't know why. So I was on the cash register on a night shift, much like tonight. It was around 3 in the morning, and the other staff was sleeping. Suddenly, the door opens and Sheila walks in. She was looking at the floor and slowly shuffling towards me, so I greet her and ask where she's been. She doesn't say anything at first, so I reach out to her, but suddenly, her head snaps up and she screams at me while pointing towards the kitchen. I got so scared I closed my eyes, and when the screaming stopped, she was gone. Sheila was reported missing by her roommate a week prior, and when we reviewed the CCTV cameras, they only recorded me cowering behind the cash register. I frowned at Craig. "So you mean to say that was her ghost or something?" "I think it was. They never found her body. If she had just run away, she wouldn't have left all her things at her apartment." Her roommate was questioned, of course, but she had an alibi. It's a cold case. "So, does her ghost regularly haunt this place?" "No, that was the one time it happened." "Are you afraid she'll appear tonight?" "You wish." I playfully swatted his elbow. The rest of the night shift passed by quicker after that. Before I knew it, our shift was over and it was time to be replaced. While I was brushing my teeth in the staff room, I saw Jim coming in, and remembering what Greg said, I decided to approach him. Now that I see Jim up close, he looked, there was no other word for it, haunted. His eyes and mouth seemed to droop downwards, and his eye bags were deep. His eyebrows were turned upwards at the center, giving him a permanently worried look. He must be tired so early in the morning, I thought. "Hi, Jim. Greg was telling me how you knew many creepy stories. Would you tell me a quick one before I go?" "Alright," Jim said slowly, turning to face me. "There was a sick man who loved this girl, but she didn't love him back. He decided to kill her, but forgot he had nowhere to hide her, so he decided to cook her body piece by piece. It was so delicious that he decided to eat girls from now on." Jim's story was short and unfunny, but the expression on his face as he looked at me sent shivers down my spine. I was about to ask him if this was all just a joke, but my mouth wouldn't move. "Oh, hey Jim, got any more meat pies on you?" Greg said as he appeared by the doorway. I watched in horror as Jim handed out a meat pie to Greg, his manic eyes never leaving mine. "You should try one," Greg said, handing me one. As I stared at Greg, chewing, I weakly wondered, what was in this pie?